Folks, this video, picture video, is going to cover how to install an Android 15 9-inch car stereo system into a new Beetle, 98 to 2012. Not a lot of videos out to do it. Hopefully this one helps you. When it's in, this is what it's going to look like. A factory type install, not blocking vents. Most of the advertising for these shows a before and after picture. The after pictures are usually Photoshopped, so I'm not sure what you're really seeing, but this is what you see in the advertising. You can buy a dash only called the bezel. So I'll call this a bezel, center bezel, and you can put in your own radio, your own 9-inch, or you can buy a kit with everything. Radios are all about the same. They're solid state, thin, 1.5 inches thick. They got a lot of features, a lot of wires. I'm not going to cover how these wires get done. I'm doing the physical install. Usually the kits will have a lot of pieces as well. They come with a GPS antenna, UPS cables, things like that you're going to need to fill out the install. When your box comes, make sure it's not all smashed. Mine looked a little odd. I got a manual in mine and a part number, but it had really no meaning. These are non-branded, and the manual really was a different version of software than what was installed. So it was helpful, but not that helpful. Sort out all your parts and figure out what they are. What you're going to be doing is removing the center console bezel from your VW, transferring a bunch of parts over to it, and then putting it back in. When you remove it, lay them down side by side and you'll see what's happening. The AC center temp control, speed control moves down about 3 inches lower to make room for the new screen. So that's going to block off a lot of your access to your cup holders. So just be aware of that. They're not going to be as usable as they are before. You're going to move 4 things from the old bezel to the new bezel. You're going to move the block off plate for the dash defrost. You're going to move the top 2 vents, AC vents over. You're going to move the AC fan speed temp control unit over. And you're going to move the lower accessory box over. That has like your car seat heaters. Now the lower accessory box is not part of the bezel, but it's going to be attached to the bezel. Here's a picture showing that the speed control unit has been moved over, and I've cut plastic out of the way to make room for cables that are going to come to the accessory box. This shows that the block-off plate has been moved over, and you can see the plug barely that will be used to attach or fix the top of the bezel into your dash. The block-off plate, the way you get it off the old bezel, is use a heat gun and a screwdriver. Heat up the plastic welds and pop it off, and then move it over and glue it in. When you move it over to your new bezel, sand down the edges. I've circled them in red because they'll stick out a little bit. You don't want your bezel being lifted up on the dash by that block-off plate when it's glued in there. You're also going to want to make sure you have the 4 connectors in place, keepers in place for that lower accessory box. There's 4 of them. 2 are on the face of the bezel. Move those over from your old bezel to new bezel, little metal they clip on, and move 2 on the bottom. The 2 on the bottom are going to be glued on. And every time I say glue, I'm using construction adhesive. Just glue them on. It'll get hard, it'll be fine. Also, you want to glue in little blocker plates for your warning flashers. Not all the Beetles have the warning flashers up between the AC vents. Some of them do, some of them don't. Most of the kits will have little blockers. You can glue those in, block that off if yours are down below. This is a completed new bezel. So circled in red is the pin from the block-off plate moved over that's going to connect into the dash up top. Circle in the middle is where I've glued those little plates in to block the holes. And then at the bottom, I've got the AC fan temp speed control glued in and screwed in. I also cut out a chunk of plastic at the bottom, and that's for the cables that are going to go to that lower accessory box. Here's the bezel showing the way it's going to look inside the car. Everything's moved, but do not screw the radio in. If you screw that radio in, like every direction says, you're never going to be able to hook it up. So don't screw it in. Trust me on that. Fit your bezel into the car and mark where the two holes are going to be screwed through the bottom of the bezel into your lower dash area above the power outlet. See those two little dots? There's a close-up. You also want to cut some plastic out of the way to the left for those cables that are going to come down to your lower accessory box. Here's a picture of more cutting. Any instructions you get or don't get, they'll mention that you have to cut away the old AC fan temp speed control mount. Correct. Cut it away on the right and on the left where my finger is. Don't cut off the part that has the bezel connector that's circled, because you're going to need that connector for two of your screws in the middle of the bezel. Here's the driver's side. Trim those off, fast, clean, smooth down the side, get that plastic out of the way, cut it out, but don't cut off the part that's circled with the connector. Here's a picture up on your dash. The plug from that block-off plate that you transferred to your new bezel is going to plug right in there, because you don't want to rely on just two screws at the top holding it in place. They're pretty brittle. It's not that strong. Now take your lower accessory box. It's got 3 to 5 switches on it. You could just have seat heaters. Maybe you have flasher lights, maybe not. ASR, defrost. Anyway, clean that box up, because you're going to plug that box back in to your lower cables before you put your bezel in place. Here's a picture of the cables hanging down. They're hanging down right above your cup holders. Look at your manual if you're not familiar how that box hooks onto the bottom of the bezel. There's 4 screws, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the front. They have all those little keepers that you transferred over and glued or fixed in. Here's a picture of the cables cut, plugged back into the box, and also red line showing where I trimmed out plastic down to like 4 inches on the back side of there. That's so those cables have room to get out. If you don't trim that plastic out, you're not going to be able to get those cables out underneath the new bezel. Go ahead and sort out all your wiring. Get your wiring plugged in, your new harness, run your GPS antenna, get everything in there while there's no center bezel. Right? You got a lot of room to work with. In my hand are holding the 2 connectors that go to the AC temp speed control. And then there's also 3 cables, a white, yellow, and a green that control the movement of the vents. You're going to want to separate all that stuff, clean it out of the way, so you can set your bezel in there, your new center console bezel, set it in there. You set it in, don't screw it in, just set it in, and then attach the lower accessory box to the bottom. You need a little wiggle room to get that to hook up in there. Get it to hook up in there and then put in the 4 screws. There's a picture showing it. There's a wire dropping down because I have an extra USB cable coming down to charge my phone or to upload videos. Here's the screw on the bottom of that lower accessory box, driver's side. Getting up in there is tight. Okay, get it in there. Reattach that box to the bottom of the bezel before the bezel gets attached. Here's a picture looking in the hole now, down at the top of the AC fan temp speed control. We're going to have to hook up 3 cables and then 2 connectors. 3 cables and 2 connectors, and you can do it through that 9-inch hole where the radio is going to go. Your bezel's in place, not screwed in. They're showing the hole back off a little bit, and I've hooked up those 3 cables. Plenty of room to reach in there and hook them up. Plugged in the connectors as well. This is a picture showing the console, center bezel console in place. Radio wires are hanging out. Everything else has been hooked up down below. Now, remember I told you, don't cut off those two screw connector places on the old AC mount, because you want to be able to screw through your new bezel in the middle and get two more screws in there. This is where they go, one on the left, one on the right. Drill a hole and then get them in there. All right, this will fix that whole center console bezel in place, and you don't have the screws on top put in, nor the bottom. You'll have extra wires depending on your install. Here in my hand, I have a video cable wire that would go to my backup camera if I had one. The 4 unused wires are for, could be to trigger the power amp, could be the trip switch for the backup camera, or it could be steering wheel control, SWC1, SWC2. So you may be using those, maybe not. For me, they just go back in the hole. Now's a good time to plug everything into your radio before you permanently affix your dash. Okay, plug everything in. It's easy. Set it in place. Set it in the hole, and turn it on. Okay, connect up your battery. I hope it's been disconnected. Connect your battery. Turn it on. Run it. Run everything. Run your GPS. Run your Wi-Fi. Run your Bluetooth. Run everything to make sure everything works and all your connections. Everything works. You're in good shape. Shut it down, and now we're going to put in 4 more screws. Okay, first we're going to do the top 2. Those are up on the dash. That's the passenger side one. I've got a gauge pod that's kind of in the way, but those are hard to find, hard to see. But you got 2 on top of the dash to hold it, and you got 2 down below. And this is the driver's side down below where we have the mark on the wall. We drill through that, drill through a backer plastic, and then get a good screw in there. And here's the one on the passenger side, goes right there. Everything else is hooked up. It's the last screw to go in, and now your center bezel has 6 screws holding it in place. This is what it looks like all done. It's still got a red circle where the last screw went in. All done. Ready to peel the plastic off the screen. And there it is, really done, plastic off. So there you have it. How to install a 9-inch center console bezel with radio, Android 15, wired, wireless, not blocking any vents, not floating the screen, factory look install. I hope this helps. Thank you very much.